With the holidays approaching, it's time to get those letters to Santa written and mailed. And I'm sure you've got a wish list for what you'd like to have in your studio. And if you don't, I think you probably will by the time this episode is done. My guest today, in addition to being a top-level voice actor who has worked on thousands of projects for clients ranging from Old Navy to Lego to Blizzard Entertainment, is also an audio ninja, helping voice actors find the right gear, get their home studios set up, making sure everything sounds exactly the way that it's supposed to sound. Welcome to the show, Jordan Reynolds.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark. It's an honor.
This is going to be fun because we're going to help everybody else spend all their money.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about spending any of mine. I think I got most of the stuff, although you're probably going to tell me something. I'm going to be like, oh, I need that.
Is possible.
But
it's very possible.
Let's help everybody else spend their money as we head towards the holiday season. I was like, we got to get this episode out just in time for Black Friday and all of the amazing deals that will be popping up, whether it's Amazon, Sweetwater, whatever, and give people a list of things that they might want to be looking at. So we'll start with microphones.
All right.
I'm assuming that we need like an RE20, an SM7B, and we're
yeah, you're funny.
we're good to go for voiceover. But I'm curious about, let's talk budget ranges. Let's say we've got, kind of your entry level for the voice actor who's maybe setting up their home studio initially, maybe something for in the middle for somebody who's looking for a slight upgrade. And then there are those fortunate people out there who laugh in the face of budget and can buy whatever the heck they want. So what are your recommendations across those ranges?
First, I think we need to define like what low and medium budget are. And low budget, I try to put in the category of like 150 and under, or even 100 and under. And that's just the microphone itself. And as you know, it's like a lot of microphones actually, are just an XLR mic and you have to hook it up to an audio interface. So you can't do anything with that mic really until you have other parts that go with it. Right. But, in that $150 or lower range, the MXL 990 varies in price. Sometimes I've seen it like $60. It's crazy, but it just sounds so good for the money. The noise floor is really quiet on it. It's got a real warm tone. It's a little cheap, bright sounding, but not terrible. It just sounds really good for the money for a large diaphragm condenser. So that's usually far under $100. Then if you get a little over that $100 range, I really love the Audio-Technica AT8. So it's AT875R. It's a little shotgun mic. So it's like half the length as a 416 probably. And I think that's usually, with inflation, everything keeps going up. And we're talking US dollars here. I know you have a big Canadian audience too. But I forgot. Isn't it changing every day? Like, is it usually a little more? Like 100 US is what, like 115 Canadian?
Right now, I think I changed some money over the other day, and it was about I think I paid 41 cents on the dollar.
Damn. Oh, well, yeah. All right. 100 USD is 136 Canadian. Dang. Crazy. All right. Well, anyway, so yeah, your mileage may vary, but I can speak in US dollar terms. Sorry. But that Audio-Technica mic I was talking about, I love it because it's tiny. It stays out of your way. Large diaphragm mics are just they're just bigger, and they're more in your face, and like there's a lot of voice acting, and I have to do it sometimes when I go into studios in LA.
The U87 stays off to the side when I'm recording.
Right, exactly. And it's not to veer too off topic, but it's hard because when it's so big, like there's only so off axis it can get before it starts to sound bad, and it sounds you start hearing the room and hollow. The benefit of the shotgun mics, big or small, is you can get it focused really like tight on your mouth without it being in your visual periphery to, read the damn script. So that's what I love about that little shotgun. And it kind of has a built-in high pass filter too. So if you have a real woofy, boxy, like small closet or something you're recording in, that the Audio-Technica mic I'm talking about is already kind of scoop out some of that bass that you don't probably need or want in your space for no extra cost. And then in terms of then let's talk medium budget. But I am a big fan of the Rode NT1 5th gen, the new one that came out. It's $250 US, and it has so many features for the money, but most importantly, it sounds good. And to not go down too far of a rabbit hole, because I think we might talk about like the features that it can do later, but it is a USB mic, and it is also an XLR mic. So it that's always the problem, is like, if you get a USB mic, you're stuck with that if you ever want to upgrade down the line. You want to hook up and you want to get like an actual audio interface and have more control or more features and maybe a cleaner sound. You're stuck with, if it's just a USB mic. This completely, abolishes that rule, because they have 2 in 1 for the same price, but it's got a quieter noise floor than the TLM 103, I believe. And the tone is really flat and neutral. It's got a little bit of brightness, but it's not as bright as the TLM 103. So in general, I tend to love just how the NT1 for $250 sounds. And I think if you're getting your first mic, you really should consider spending around maybe that $250 price range, because it's not that much more, and the sound is gonna be noticeable, but also just the longevity of it, because it's XLR. You have the flexibility of USB, which we'll talk about later. So that's one of my favorites at that mid but low price point. Up in the medium, there's a lot of options once we get like 250 and above. So medium, I kind of define maybe 250 to like 500-600. All right. But 2 of my other favorites, I can't, to make this podcast not 4 hours long, I really love it keeps going up though. It might be almost 600. God, like over the past few years, just gone up. The Shure, that's SHURE. Shure, not the SM7B, but the KSM32 is one of my favorite mics for people who have really bright sibilants. When they want a large diaphragm condenser, that natural TLM 103 or U87 sound, but they've been told that their S's are really bright and they're shrill and they're distracting from the performance. You don't want that. If it's too loud, it's going to be, the listener is going to be like this, for those who are watching this interview. I made convulsion faces like I was, getting ice pick S's in my eye. That's how it's
not an enjoyable thing to listen to.
No, or feel. So the Shure KSM32, it actually cuts where a lot of the sibilance built up on most voices. So it doesn't, whereas other mics boost where the sibilance is on most voices, because it sounds good when you're not saying S's. Like when I say hello, all that boost of the brightness up there gives it this airy, crisp. A lot of people just use the word crisp quality to it. But then when the S's come out, then it sounds terrible. So there's a lot of ways to address that with like de-essing and stuff like that. I'll talk about later. But the KSM32 kind of is like a natural de-esser in a way. Okay. So, and then another one I love, and I'm going to be playing more with, is the Roswell Audio Mini K87. That's MINI, Mini K87. And no, it is not a U87 clone. All right, I'll make that clear. There's so many U87 clone mics out there, and there's some good ones and some really sniky ones. I got to keep my mouth clean on this.
Save me editing time later.
Yeah, exactly. And so you don't have to, you can upload this to YouTube and like, yes, this is for children. It's a kid's show. But the Mini K87 is, I should know, I think it's 500. Mini K87. Sorry, give me a second. Mini K87 mic. I think it's $499, $439, or if you get the mod, it's $4. So it's under $500. And what I love about it is, I should have pulled it out. I didn't have time, but it's mini. The name Mini is in it for a reason. It's tiny. It's not as small as like the Apogee mic, the USB mic. Okay. But it's almost like between like a, I really wish I had it, but it's in a box. It'd take me a minute. But like, here's an Audio Technica AT2020. Okay. I think it's like this high, and it's thinner. It's thinner than this mic. So back to what I was talking about, like, it's hard to position your mic sometimes and be able to see your script and perform. The Mini K87 is so tiny, it gives you that flexibility to really position it with it and it be out of your dang face. And it has, what I love about it is it has like a vibe of a U87, but again, what they're not trying to match it. They're not trying to do an exact sound. It uses the capsule, which is the little disc that's in there, a similar capsule. It's a flavor of a U87. Think of it that way. It's like if you had a modded U87 and you did some stuff to it. Essentially, it's less bright and it has a little bit more body. The U87 scoops out a lot of bass, whereas like the 416 has more bass. This mini one kind of like takes out, it kind of addresses some of the stuff I don't love about the U87. I really do love the mic, but there's sometimes I wish it did this or that. This mini actually addresses that. It makes it less bright and it kind of gives more body. So it's it's a really nice sounding mic for the money,
Interesting.
especially for under $500. So that's in the mid range. And then, yeah, I guess we're going up to high budget, right? At this point.
When budget is not an option.
Yeah. And you just need to like interrupt me because, you know, I don't know how many gear lists you want to go through, but I'm just trying to keep it like 2 per budget category. In the high budget, we got, I mean, the 416 is just a great go-to. I really do love, like, it's, you know, it just sounds good on most voices. I'm not going to lie. It's not like the best mic for everyone.
Right.
But it's pretty rare when I hear 416 in a good space on someone where I'm like, nah, you know. If anything, the S's might be a little bright. I was just working with someone today and very bright S's, but I guarantee if I put like a TLM 103 on her instead of a 416, it would be even more bright because that mic is just shrill on S's. So other than the S's being a little too bright sometimes, it just has a clear, focused, rich in your face, but not too in your face like a dynamic, like a Shure SM7B would have. So that's one of my favorites at that $1,000 price point. The 103 is solid, but only if you have a amazingly quiet space. If you're in a blanket booth, you're in an apartment, don't get a 103.
I think that's something that's really important for people to understand, though, right? Is that the microphone, you know, no matter how much money you throw at it, it can only perform as well as the space that you are putting it in. That's where I really like the 416, just because it tends to be a little bit more forgiving, right?
Correct. And because it's a shotgun versus a large diaphragm condenser, and a shotgun is kind of like, you know, with, you know, flashlights, you, not all of them, but not the cheap ones, but I don't know, more than $20 worth flashlights, you could twist the end and the beam, you know, if you're camping, you know how useful those beams are. It's like, oh, I need a wide range so I don't walk into a tree and break my arm in the middle of the forest. And then you can have the narrow beam if you're looking for something in your tent. You twist it. So think of the beam being a lot more narrow on a shotgun. And so it's not hearing as much of your voice in the space going, whoa, whoa, all that crap. Your voice is bouncing around and making unpleasant tones in your space. A 416 is more forgiving to not pick those up as much because it has a narrow field of pickup versus the 103 that hears everything, including, you know, a mouse fart, an ant fart, a piece of a mitochondria fart. All right. So it hears, like, it is so, I'm not exaggerating, man. Like, it is just so unrelentingly like brutal with how bad it will make your space. I love Neumann. I love their products, but just that, like, they have other mics that aren't as brutal. The 103 is the ultimate test. Like when we were setting up Mara's studio, she's like in a full blown room, right? Not like in a build, you know, a prefab booth. So we're dealing with like the window in front of her. On the other side is the world. Okay. The window behind me in my studio bricks, what's on the other side? Another room. And then there's walls and then the world. I have a lot of barriers. She does not. So what I do is put up the 103 and record it for like 3 hours. And I listen back and I pull it up in RX and I'm like, what? Oh, there's a little squeak. And like, you could hear like bird chirps coming through the window, like when we didn't have it dialed in enough. Right. And then I put a different mic up and you don't hear it. And the 103 is just brutal. It's brutal. Yeah. So not unless if you have an amazingly perfectly quiet space. Many people do, especially if you're like in a basement or something like that. The 103 is definitely, it can be an amazing mic for you. So, and then finally another high, you know, I know those are really predictable answers. But there's so many. Oh my God. Lewitt makes really great mics. They have they keep changing, but they have like a 640 or a 1040. They have one that you can I think it's the Lewitt 1040. That's a higher budget mic, but this is a microphone that lets you dial in tube or FET. And FET just means clean. Let's put it that way in non-technical terms. So it's like having multiple microphones in one. Okay. And you can just slide this volume, this literal knob that you plug the mic into and get a wide range of flavors in one microphone. And then the cherry on top for the final budget in that $1,000 range is the UAD Sphere LX. There's the Sphere DLX, which is $1,500. And then there's the LX, which is $1,000. There's very minor differences in between them without going too down that rabbit hole. I actually recommend the LX for most voice actors because it gets the job done. And the differences are quite negligible between the two in terms of voice actors' concerns go. But it requires a UAD Apollo interface. But the benefit of these sphere mics, and it's what I have floating behind me right now, and my wife, it's all we use. I have 416 on my desk for doing, coaching and interviews and stuff like that. And I do some auditions out here. But in my booth, the sphere microphone, I can turn it into a 416. I can turn it into a U87. I can turn it into a 103. And then 30 other mics. I can blend. I can do like half 103, half 416. It's crazy. You can change the pickup pattern. I can make it super hypercardioid or wide. Like the world is your oyster.
That's because of the combination with the Apollo, you're saying?
Correct. Technically, you can use it without an Apollo, but you have to do all that mic stuff afterwards. Okay. AKA, it's a pain in the ass to do it afterwards.
Okay.
You do not want to get a sphere mic without an Apollo. I'm just keeping it real.
Apollo. Okay.
So, but it's when you have those two together, so $500 cheapest Apollo, $1,000 cheapest sphere mic, you're $1,500 and you have every dang mic.
You got everything
that you'll need. And it sounds amazing.
I want to go back to you touched on the 5th generation Rode, the NT1. I think this is a really interesting mic. I'm not an audio guy, but I pay attention a little bit. And obviously USB mics have been primarily frowned upon for quite some time in the voice acting space. I think it's just because we think, whatever, Yeti or whatever it is. But this Rode is, this Rode is interesting because it's both. And I mean, maybe there's other ones out there that give you the XLR and the USB. I just don't know about them, but it's the first one that I've heard about. But talk about that. Is XLR or is USB technology or sound quality catching up with XLR, or like what's the deal with that? Obviously, it's nice to not have to have an interface. Makes it a little more portable. Yeah. But do we have to worry about, is there going to be a sound difference between whether you go USB or XLR on it?
That's a really good question. And it's interesting because on the notion of USB mics being frowned upon in professional VO world, that's the fact that it's USB is actually not the problem. All right. Because what are you plugging your $1,000 416 into? A Focusrite 2A2. What is coming out of your Focusrite? USB.
Yeah, USB cable going into your MacBook, just like everything else. Yeah,
exactly. But it's the association of like a microphone with the USB cable equals cheap and bad. And why is that? Because why was it invented? Because for people to just be able to record themselves, podcast streamers, even entry-level voice actors, cheaply, and it sound better than the built-in mic on their laptop screen. Right. Okay. And so what they did is they get a mic that's a little better sounding. So the microphone itself is okay sounding. And then it just happens to be connected via USB. So you don't have to get an XLR cable and you don't have to get an audio interface because that's more money. They're like, let's take an audio interface and put it inside of the mic. But it's like a multifunction printer, right? You get a multifunction printer and it's like, oh, it can fax, it can scan, it can print color, it can do it, like it can wash your dishes, but it does one of those things good and everything else it's terrible at, right? So it's kind of similar with the USB mics. It's like we'll just say the audio interface part of it, where it's converting your voice into a digital signal going into your computer. It's not doing a poor job on that. Technology of audio, analog to digital conversion is the term, where it takes your voice that's in the real world and puts it into the beep, boop, beep, beep, boop, and down on the cable, and it goes in your computer. That's the conversion process. That conversion process has gotten so good for such a cheap amount of money now. So that's like in the 90s or early 2000s, there was like poor conversion. It is so negligible at this point, especially for just spoken word. And with those mics, they always had pretty good conversion, but the microphone itself that happened to be paired with the USB was kind of meh. So there just wasn't any good mics. The first ones that started to come out were the Apogee mic. Remember that? But it was like $250 or $300, right? They just keep going up. But it sounds really good for a USB mic. And it's not that. So they're the ones who kind of started to break that mold of USB mics equal bad. So now enter the generation of the Rode NT1, where they have the 5th gen, that is. And they have both USB and XLR. So it's not a nature. I know it's kind of a long-winded way, but some people might find that history of it fascinating, and it's not fair to associate all USB mics are bad, because people like Apogee and Rode are breaking that notion by having two things: a very good sounding mic going through a very good sounding USB converter, which essentially is an audio interface. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, it really is when you think about it. It's a perception thing. Like, we're not recording on reel to reel anymore, but that was analog, like an XLR. So
Yeah.
like technology changes, technology improves, but maybe we need to just watch some of those notions, because it is a different. USB A versus USB C was different in how speeds and data transfer and all that sort of stuff. So it's just, I know it's a mic that a lot of people are talking about, and some of the functionality that's built into it is nice if you want to be able to take it on the road with you. You're going to a conference or something like that. You don't want to have to pack up your interface or everything. It does give you that backup option. One other question for mics then. I'm almost ashamed to admit, because I'm worried that I'm going to get called out for it, but I do not have fancy Mogami cables on my microphones. I'm a cheap Canadian. What can I tell you?
Oh my God, Mark! Oh my God!
I have to tell you, it's so funny, because if you actually go into some of these Facebook groups and you see some of these guys, and it's like you buy this fancy microphone, and if you don't buy $100 gold-plated, diamond-encrusted cables to go along with it, like, you just don't know what you're doing, and it's like you might as well have just went and bought a USB. Is there really that much of a difference? I mean, I could see if you go and buy like the knockoff, no-name, Amazon recommends, $5 XLR.
Yeah,
but if you're
those
getting
are
a
trash.
decent XLR cable, is there that much of a difference?
Overall, this man, most of the time, no.
Okay.
More of the time, no. As long as you're not getting the cheapest of the cheap, like the cheapest of the cheap versus a Mogami, which the price keeps going up just like everything. But like, I think the 6-foot version is around 60 US now.
Okay.
And but I preach Mogami cables because it's more of a preventative measure, right? So it's kind of like eating healthy. Instead of just like, I'm just going to keep, eating a hamburger like McDonald's every day and just hope.
Are you judging me because
problems.
I drink too much Dr. Pepper right now? Like, no. Is that what's going on here?
I see no Dr. Pepper in your camera frame, but that's just your insecurities coming out.
You don't know what's in here.
Smart. Cover it up. Honey, what's in the Yeti? Open the lid. I could see it now. It's going to be a very tumultuous Christmas Eve. All right. So where was I? Mogami. So instead of just eating, your cheap cable all the time, and what are the risks of a cheap cable? The biggest thing is that it's just the build quality. So it can easily malfunction, break. Like, I literally just, when I was being all dramatic and, when you were saying I don't have good cables, I rolled over my headphone cable. Well, these headphones are really expensive, so they're going to have a nice cable. I've rolled over this headphone cable with my wheels on my chair, with all my body weight multiple times, and they're still fine. If I did that with a $5 Amazon XLR cable, that might have been all it took to destroy it, right? Or it creates a problem or noise. A Mogami cable very likely would have withstood that and 100 other rolls. So there's durability. So that's just like how long it's going to last. And a good cable like Mogami will last like literally a lifetime. And especially in a VO studio where you're never moving it. On the road, touring, traveling, different story, because you're constantly moving it, right? It's like, but if it just sits there all the time, it's going to last for a really long time. So, but then there's the other variable of why even consider Mogami, if there's not much of a difference in sound, is the other preventative thing is noise and interference of stuff getting into your audio. And what do we have in our booths? We have, most people, you have your microphone and your headphones, your audio interface. But what a lot of people are also doing, right, is they have a surge protector around there somewhere to plug in their laptop. If you don't have a laptop in your booth, you have a monitor. So that has power, right? Electricity. A lot of us
I'm looking
lamps
over your shoulder at your fancy LED lights in your booth,
and
I'm thinking, no, there's something that might generate some noise too.
Yep. So there's two types of noise, without getting too down the rabbit hole. There's noise that literally, if you put your ear up to those lights or that electrical outlet, you're going to hear like, right. Then there's noise that your ear cannot actually hear, and it's phantom. It's literally like invisible to the ear, and it will get into your recording with cheaper cables.
Okay.
If that cheaper cable is within a vicinity, which is very common in our booths because we have no space to
Yep.
perform, let alone manage our cables. If they're kind of overlapping and doing stuff, a cheaper cable is much more likely to get, and you're gonna lose your freaking mind trying to figure out what's going on. Whereas a Mogami cable has built-in shielding and protection and RF protection to like even like radio waves, like over, you know, we've all, I don't know if it happens with modern stuff, but like, have you ever picked up like a radio? Like you're like, is that someone on a walkie-talkie? Am I recording? What's happening? You ever had that?
I remember back in the day, I'm about to sound really old here. I used to have a CB radio.
Yeah. It sounds like CB radio people when it comes in.
And I would pick stuff up, like it would come through. I would get it, pick up noise off of my on my computer. That was right.
It's so weird and creepy. But yeah, so Mogami cables are generally going to be better at rejecting that. And that's important when you're doing this as a profession, not as a hobby, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for $60, that's worth it. And then finally, in terms of noise, it's good at rejecting noise. The other thing is cheaper cables it's not a rule, have more built-in noise, meaning not buzz, but just more of a like F as in Frank. You know, when you turn your mic gain up and it just
Yep.
Cheaper equipment tends, not a rule, but tends to have more, it's called self noise, the more gain that you run through it. So a $5 Amazon cable, it is more likely to have more or hiss, whatever you want to call it, than a $60 Mogami cable. So if this Mogami cable was $150 versus a mid-range $30 cable, I wouldn't be so, like preaching it. Get Mogami. But like $60, it's just a no-brainer as a preventative.
Well, especially if you're going to spend $500 or $1,000 on a microphone, another $500 or $1,000 depending on what you buy for an interface, right? Like at that point, what's another $60 to bring all the pieces of the puzzle? Great. So so I know what I'll be watching for on Black Friday special then.
Yeah, I know. It's so popular though. I hope they put it on Black Friday sale, but they'd be like, we don't need to put it on sale. Everyone buys this.
Everybody's buying them anyway.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about interfaces. I mean, you touched on it earlier when you talked about how everybody has their microphone plugged into a Scarlett 2i2. It feels like that is a rite of passage as you come into the voiceover industry. You know, one of the first things that you do is you have to go out and buy a 2i2. I'm not really sure what it was that made that the entry industry standard, other than maybe the price point or good marketing. I'm not sure.
I think it's a combo of both.
Yeah, combo of both. But let's put that one aside, since I think everybody's basically aware of it at this point.
Yeah.
What else is out there for interfaces? And I'm also curious to hear your thoughts on how much of a difference, if you take out plugins and software, how much of a difference is there from one interface to the next interface? If it's just plugging in your XLR and then your USB to your computer.
It's a great question. So let's start with that, because that's kind of like, let's start at the bare bones of it all, right? Like, why would I spend $150 on or why would I spend $500 or more on an interface if I can get one for $150? Is there going to be a difference with that? Mm-hmm. So all features aside, so compressors or high gain mode or the air button on those Focusrite, some of them have, right? That's like a tonal feature. We're just talking like, if you match the gain, if you plug the same mic into both interfaces and you turned up the gain and you were able to record that mic, your one performance through splitting between the like $1,000 Apollo and $150 Steinberg UR12 or a Focusrite Scarlett, and you playing back for most voice actors, hardly any are going to hear it different. Like, they're like, I don't know, they sound the same. Just keeping it real. And that's because one of the big reasons is that the conversion technology of where it's taking your analog voice and it's putting it into the computer, that conversion has just gotten so good for the price. So that is that is no longer a comparable for the most part for spoken word issue. So what you are getting at baseline between an expensive and a cheap interface is kind of similar to what I was talking about with the cables. Better build quality, better quality control, right? Probably going to last longer and be more, it's going to be just better in terms of just like more rugged, right? If you drop it, spill something out, maybe, right? And then, but also the noise thing I was telling you about, right? So if you turn up a Focusrite Scarlett preamp to like, if you max it out, it's just, I can't remember if it's 55 or 60 dB of gain when it comes up, but let's say you can crank it to 50 dB of gain, and you take an Apollo, same mic, and you crank it to 50 dB of gain in the same space, and you hit record. It's not guaranteed, but it's likely that the Apollo might be a few dB quieter. And us voice actors are just dying to get a few dB shaved off our noise floor, right? Yep. And in addition to that, the preamps that are built into these auto interfaces. So the auto interface is just the whole thing, and then there's a preamp inside of it, and that's what's amplifying your voice through the microphone. Those tend to just can handle more dynamic range. Like they don't crap themselves when it gets too loud. And if you do any sort of character work, this is something that, you may want to look out for. Focusrites are still like, they can handle it. There's plenty of video game voice actors who are using Scarletts. Okay.
Yep.
But if you're going to do any sort of loud vocals or singing, in addition to dynamic character work, something like an Apollo or an SSL2, which is just a little more expensive. That's pretty much the same price, actually. There's just a little bit better build quality that those preamps can handle that volume coming at them without it going, and it literally will distort. Not because your gain is cranked up too loud, but because of literally it's the physics of it going into the thing. Kind of like some microphones are really bad at it too. It's called sound pressure level, SPL. But anyway, so apples to apples, that's not really what you're paying for, is this huge upgrade in sound quality. It's a little upgrade.
Yep.
Little, right? For kind of a big price. So what are you paying for? The features. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And that's definitely where there's a difference. I think that needs to be understood though, because man, sometimes there's some serious gear shaming that happens because, you don't have the right, according to whomever, you don't have the right interface or the right microphone or whatever. And, like you said, apples to apples comparison, we're not talking about huge upgrades. Now, obviously the Apollo offers a ton over the 2i2. Yeah. But if your objective is to connect your microphone to your computer, they, basically do the same thing. But okay, so let's talk then. I'm sure the Apollo is going to come up as one of your recommended interfaces here. I suspect we'll have that conversation. But what else are what other ones could we be looking at?
Well, I don't know if I mentioned any, but in that budget range, like the SSL2 is pretty solid. I think some PC users haven't had the best experience with it, but Mac users tend to be happy with it. The real low budget one, the Steinbag UR12, is great. Anything Audient makes is pretty solid, but specifically the ID line, I think they have another one that's, I'm not sure if it's ID, but it's a little more like for musicians, like with auto gain and stuff like that. Not ideal for voiceover work, kind of in the way. But, and then in that, it's weird. It's kind of like there's this lower budget range, like of 100 up to 300. And then just everything above it, then it's like 500 to, and then if you just want more preamps in it, it goes up to like 4,000, right? Right. But after that, it's pretty much Apollo's Apogee duets, or I don't know if they still make the duet, but it's Apogee something. I think it's a duet. But anything Apogee makes, RME, it's Richard Michael Edward. It's a German company. That's what I used for years before I went Apollo. Okay. So RME, Apogee, and UAD, Universal Audio. Those are the mid, honestly, higher tier audio interfaces that come with really good quality components, and between all of them, a wide range of varying features, so that let you shape the tone of your audio. However, to wrap that up, please devil's advocate, there's budget interfaces now that are finally coming with similar features. Do they give you as much versatility? Maybe not, but like the Presonus Revelator. They have like IO24 and there's a few of them. It's just preamp how many channels you get. But Presonus Revelator has built-in software where you can do compression, an expander, EQ. They don't have a de-esser, which is a bummer. But for I think it's like $150. So I kind of call that like the poor man's Apollo, where you can kind of still shape your sound, but you can't have the sound of an Avalon or the Manley Vox box. That's where you're getting that premium. It's like modeled after legendary stuff that the Beatles used and other people in multi-million-dollar studios, and you can put that in a piece of software. That's what you're paying for at that price point.
So let's talk about on that software side. Generally speaking, we're supposed to be, I'll use air quotes here, sending raw audio to producers or whatever. But with some of these different interfaces like the Apollo, it allows you to do everything pre. So on the way into the computer, as opposed to post, right? After in Adobe Audition or whatever. So talk a little bit about that then, because if you're using some of these features on the Apollo, once you've recorded with those features on, that's your sound, right? You're not taking that off after. So I'm guessing you got to be careful or know what you're doing or have somebody set it up for you to make sure that it's done properly.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why I made the UAD Apollo course, is because there's a lot of talent who buy the Apollo, because everyone talks about it, right? It's very popular in the voiceover world, especially for very established pros, because where they're in that fortunate position to invest more money in their gear, or they just have stupid money and they just want all the toys. But correct. So it's technically it's not raw if you have any of that processing, whether you're using the $150 PreSonus Revelator and you do some compression EQ, there's an option to make it permanent and get in the recording. Same with the Apollo. You can make it just where you hear it in your headphones only, or it lands inside of the DAW or in Source Connect and you can't do anything about it. But you can get away with calling your audio raw. It's not like I'm trying to be deceitful when I say this, but like without going through a big tangent here, every space, no matter how much money, like I have an expensive Studio Bricks behind me, but it doesn't sound perfect on my voice on every mic. Every space you record in, no matter how big or small or expensive or cheap, there is what I call in non-technical terms, junk that's getting into the audio with your voice.
Right.
And that is too much bass, perhaps, if you're in a small space. Or like I was talking about with like the 103, too much sibilance can happen on some voices. That's junk. So it's anything that distracts the listener, no matter how technical they are, whether they're an engineer or a casting director. If they are distracted from your performance, then that is junk that is in your audio that needs to be tamed in one way or another. And that's what I teach in my courses, or if someone hires me, I go through the prevention stage. Let's do mic placement. That makes a huge difference. Just mic placement alone is just how much you can change your sound. But in addition to that, it's like, okay, there's too much bass, but let's get some bass traps. Let's put them over in this part of your space. Let's lower the mic. Maybe have you considered sitting? That might be a last resort option to kind of help. So there's this whole prevention phase, just like eating well, right? You want to put good stuff in your body versus just putting the Band-Aid on like, hey, Jordan, my audio sounds like crap and I bought the cheapest mic ever and I have like one piece of foam on the wall. Can you make me a preset? No. And my style is I don't, as far as when I help people with their audio, I don't do like offline, here's a preset. There's so many things you can do in the prevention stage. So I require a live consult talking to you virtually, and then we dial everything in together. So because of that, there's junk that gets into your audio, and that is when processing, you can do very gentle processing if you know what you're doing, like if you learned it through my course, or you hire someone like myself or George or Roy and or Tim, I know, there's a bunch of us, to dial that in for you to where you could submit it to for a commercial gig, and they're and just say, oh yeah, it's my raw audio. It's raw. It's raw. Yes. But they won't know because it just sounds good, because that's what guys like us are trying to dial it in. We're getting it.
That's the key right there. You said though, like if I'm going to go out and get an Apollo, I am going to not do it right. Like I will take it too far, or possibly. I will, push it too far, play with too many buttons or whatever. So I guess that's the big thing, is if you're going to go that route, particularly if you're doing it pre, so that you can't change it after the fact.
Yes.
It's making sure that you've got somebody that's setting it up for you properly so that you know that what you're recording is right and good and, suits your space, your mic, your voice, etc. Right. That's so the pre-setup is an important part of the factor.
Absolutely. And the genre of VO widely varies in terms of what is acceptable to them, in terms of what you can slip past them, if you will, like that they won't hear or even care about. And then there's where they may think they want raw, but they just want it to sound good, because they know in most voice actors, they're not dumb. They're meaning they just want to make their audio sound better. But I've heard thousands and thousands of samples. More often than not, the processing that voice actors do themselves is usually makes their raw, like actual raw audio, before processing sound worse after processing than what it was. So that is why there's this huge trend of every audition and like raw audio, don't touch it, just don't touch it, because they've heard so much, and I have heard so much butchered audio.
Yep.
But you can make it actually sound really good and better than raw with by getting rid of some of the junk with just EQ or maybe a little bit of de-essing and compression. That's really, or light noise removal. That's kind of the main sets of processing, and it can just sound even better than a lot of other people when dialed in right. So video, to wrap this whole thing up, genre wise, I've even made charts in it in my course, actually, where I break, like I have spreadsheets of genres of like, how much processing can I get away with? Right.
Yeah.
And so I have everything from audiobooks to IVR to e-learning to commercial to promo to trailer to sound-alike work to dubbing, ADR for feature film, for dubbing for anime, to video game to anime. I mean, I could go on. Those are the main categories. And to really simplify it, the more charactery the work is, like dubbing for a thing, anime, animation, video games, the more hardcore they are. But like they'll hear they'll hear like heavier processing. Like they're going to notice something if it's not dialed in right. And they're going to be the most hardcore about like, no, just turn all that off. I don't care if Jordan did it for you. Just turn it off. Okay. I know Jordan's got a good ear, but turn it off. Right. Because they want to control it, and you got to respect that.
If I were to go back to some of my audio, I'm going to say like 2007, 8, 9, kind of in that area, just coming out of radio, knew just enough to make myself very, very dangerous. And I know if I went back and listened to some of that stuff, it was so bad. Like the compression on it was too much, right? Because it was trying to match that radio sound or whatever, which, that's like the worst thing in the world nowadays. And so that's why I just, it's really important for people to understand. And I mean, particularly when you have the CEOs of online castings saying, on average, 80% of the auditions that are submitted through online casting are junk because the audio is bad.
That's
like
just astounding.
An astounding statistic that came from multiple CEOs of different online castings. And so it just goes to show that, you can get this equipment, but if you don't know what you're doing, you need to get somebody who knows what they're doing so that you can make sure that you are doing things properly.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the other stuff.
Okay.
So we've got our microphone, we've got our interface, but we want to put together our wish list for Santa or whatever. What are some of the other fun gadgets, gizmos? What other things could we be looking for that you'd like, man, you need one of these in your studio. You gotta have one of those in your studio. I know you've got some stuff.
I'm trying to think of like, it just depends on where you're at in your career, but some fun non-obvious things are, let's see, definitely a mic mute button. So it's the mic mute PPD. All right. Paul, okay. David. There's like 4 mic mute models. There's like the PPR, the PPT. There's like so many, but get the PPD, and it's literally just a box that's like the size of your fist, and it has a red button on it, and you plug your mic into it. What's that?
So when you sneeze,
or fart, or need to yell at the dog, or
yes,
curse under your breath because the client is making you do an 85th take, and you've given them every variation possible, but they want more. You can mute that button. You can
possibly be speaking from experience on that.
Yeah, and they won't hear it. So one thing though, on a lot of these mic mute buttons, they're actually, some of them advertise that it's a true mute, and from some of the testing, I need to get my hands on that particular model, but I have one on my mic right now, and it's not a true like mute on a digital, like on Zoom. It turns your audio down by like 20 or 30 decibels. So if you're loud enough, it'll come through quietly. So just beware.
So don't be talking smack about the client,
smack.
Is what you're saying. Yeah, because they might still hear you.
Possibly. But usually, look, what happens is we mute our mic when they are editing or talk like amongst themselves. So even if your audio comes through super quiet of you cursing about them, they're going to be like, they won't catch it unless if they're sitting in dead silence, and then they hear you do something. But anyways, it's the mic mute PPD. It's a great option to wire in to your chain. It's really simple. It just requires a second mic cable, because your mic goes into the button, and then another cable, XLR, comes out of the button and into your audio interface. That's a fun toy. I really love Elgato. It's Elgato, Elgato products. They specialize in streaming, but like I have 2 Elgato key lights on me right now, and you can control the temperature. What do you use for your light?
I've got a couple of Elgato key lights and a Stream Deck out at my desk that I use for live streaming Zoom calls and all that sort of stuff, and I love them. Yeah, not cheap.
No, absolutely not. But they look like, they're thin. They're as thin as an iPad almost, and they, but compared to the giant like softbox stuff that you see in like studios and photography, that's like takes up. It's like half.
Yeah,
of
I don't got room for that.
Yeah. So so iPad or half of a bathroom softbox. I'll take the iPad size, please. For because a lot of us got to be on Zoom for workshops. Like, let me go on a quick tangent here. Please, voice actors, like I am in a lot of voice workshop. I teach a lot of workshop, but I'm also in it as a working voice actor because you always got to level up. Like, you never have it all figured out. And I'm doing at least like almost 1 workshop a month. And there's 12 people usually in there. And there's typically 3, maybe more sometimes, where their video setup is so bad, like, or they just don't even turn. You may have your reasons to not turn on your camera for personal. I understand that. But if you do decide to turn it on, I encourage it because casting directors remember faces, not headshots. And if you don't even have a headshot up, what are you doing? Sorry, side tangent, Mark, but this is important because like you're about marketing and stuff. If you're in these workshops, people, and you turn off your camera, because it's not your turn, whatever, just upload a headshot or a good like portrait mode from your iPhone with good lighting outside. Take that photo, put it on there so you look memorable. There's a face instead of just JR, like, and with black background. Okay, so first of all, do that. Second, if you do decide to turn on your camera, all webcams have a wide range in quality, but you can get away with a cheap webcam if you have just a decent light on you. So just get a good ring light that's like $30. You don't need to get this expensive Elgato one, and just make sure your face is lit enough in your dark. I have black foam in my booth, so I need a lot of lighting to see, my pasty face, but it's important that you're seen well enough on camera so it doesn't look cheap. And make sure if you can, if possible, please put your webcam not on your ceiling. Okay, like it looks like there's,
because that's what happens when I talk to my mom. I'm like trying to have a conversation with my mom, and I'm staring at the chandelier, and I'm like,
because her laptop screen is like, it's like
she
the
turns
top of
her iPad,
hair.
or she sits her iPad in her lap, and it just aims up at the ceiling or whatever. But this is actually, I'm glad you brought this up because it is something I think that doesn't get talked about. Even think about. And you would know better than me because you probably do I know you do way more directed sessions than I do, but even doing directed sessions more and more, I'm doing these sessions with clients via Zoom or Google Meets, right? It's not just Source Connect.
Yeah.
And we are going on video. And so like I did put a ring light in my studio. I'm in my booth right now. I've got a ring light, to help because it was very dark in here. I had before just had like, mood lighting hanging from the ceiling or whatever, like nano leaves that I could make, different colors or whatever. But then I'm like, wow, this looks terrible when I'm on camera. And so, you $50 on Prime Day or whatever, get a ring light, and it really does make a difference. So, that's actually something that I think we probably should pay a little bit more attention to.
Yeah. And if you can't afford it, look for this on Black Friday. I don't know if it's going to go on sale, but I've done a lot of, like, I've looked up so much on just what can I get away with just a webcam and not have to get a full-blown DSLR mic. Is it DSLR or DLSR? It's DSLR, right? See, I'm an audio guy.
Well, and now all the streaming stuff is mirrorless, and so which I think is something different even from the DSLRs.
No, I think that's just a type of DSLR.
Or type of DSLR.
Yeah.
I just know you can spend a crap ton of money on those.
Yeah, you can. And
you want to talk about microphones being expensive? Dude. Start buying mirrorless cameras.
Seriously. But what you get, though, is that control over, like, you can have really crappy lighting and still make yourself look good. Almost.
Yep.
Webcams are brutal. You can look like you're 180 years old with just a crappy light in there and a crappy webcam. But I highly recommend the Logitech Brio. All right. They have like a streaming one. It's expensive, man. Like, I think it's 150 usually. It's really pricey compared to, but like, dude, you can get away with mediocre to really good lighting. And like, that's what I'm on right now. I did my course on it, multiple courses, and it's what I have another one in my booth because I try to use the C920, which is like $100, I think. And that webcam is crap compared to the Brio. The Brio is just way more smooth and fluid and evens the skin tone better and the lighting. So
Yep.
Logitech Brio, that's another fun one. And I'm trying to think of one more fun like side accessory toy. If your audio interface is not in your booth and you have to get out of your booth to go change your headphone volume, consider getting a headphone amp.
Okay.
You don't need to go expensive because you're not doing critical audio work in your booth. You just need to hear yourself and the client. So anything like by PreSonus, they make the HP4, but there's actually one, hold on, Behringer makes one and it's crazy cheap. This is my other final recommendation. Behringer headphone amp, because a lot of headphone amps are for big recording studios where they want to split it out to the band, they get the guitar and the bass, right? We don't need that. We just need one pair of headphones to plug into. And Behringer makes one. Behringer makes one of the few that is just you plug one pair of headphones into it and it's not $500. It's called the Micromon MA400. Mike Behringer. So Marc will put this in the show notes, right?
Yep, I'll put everything in the show notes. I will. Yes.
So yeah, Behringer Micromon. Better write it down now though. MA400. All right, because it's tiny and you can run an additional cable coming out of your headphone amp from your 2i2 that's maybe in another room, and run a cable into your booth, and then have a control over your headphone volume. Because there's a lot of voice actors I work with for my Audio Ninja clients who they don't have control of their headphone volume. So they just deal with it. So if a client's too loud, they just eat it. If they're too quiet, they just deal with it. And that's just not good because that's
okay on a 5-minute session, but on an hour-long session, yeah.
Like I'll go in, especially in studios. I know this because voice actor, just we're creative and we're polite. Like we know we're like work for hire, right? So it's just like we don't want to rock the boat. To rock the boat, baby. Right. So if I go into studios all the time in LA where I know that the mic gain changes and that will affect how loud I hear myself. So I'm not taking that into account. I don't touch the volume knob. I put on the headphones and I hear how either loud or quiet the talkback is, or the client on Zoom that's directing me, and it's like either deafening or I can barely hear anything. And I know that last actor didn't ask to change anything. And you can, folks, just polite. And sometimes they can. Sometimes they can't, but it does not be like, hey, you're coming in pretty loud. Is there any way you could possibly turn yourself down? Because I'm unable to do that on my end because it would turn me down too. Oh yeah, usually they can do that. So sorry, random side tangent, but headphone amps. No, it's a thing.
All right. Well, okay. So we're talking headphones, amps. Let's talk headphones. One more set of gear recommendation for this one. I actually have gotten as a recovering radio guy. I used to have headphones on when I was in the booth. I just couldn't not because of 20 years of radio. I've gotten better at not wearing them in the booth, but I mean, I had to go out when Audio Technica came out with the orange ones, right?
Nice.
Right. It's the brand. I had to go buy them.
Yep.
What do you, any special recommendations for headphones? Because I know that a lot of voice actors, even if you don't wear them in the booth, a lot are using them for editing. And you do want to have a good set of headphones when you're editing. So
100%.
What should we be looking for?
If you're balling on a budget, honestly, anything, the Audio Technica ATH series. So ATH dash fill in the blank. There's the M20, M30X, M40X, M50. I think it was literally 20, 30, 50, and there's even the 70s. Don't get the 70s.
I think the ones I got are the 50s. And
you have the 50s.
I literally only bought them because they came out with orange ones. And I did not need them, but I had to have them.
I get it. I get it. Well, luckily they sound really good for the money, but those are around like 160 US, and that's out of some people's budgets. And especially if you're just doing audio or need headphones for editing, those are my favorite. But I think they start at $30. I think the M20Xs might be 30 or 40, maybe 50 max. But like if you can get 50 is like a good sweet spot. Like you can't go wrong if you spend that on studio grade headphones. Don't get anything that says DJ. All right. Or gaming, avoid those words when you buy your headphones. So honestly, I love that range. Now, once we hit that $100 mark, my absolute favorite is the Sennheiser HD280s, HD280 Pros. There's a pro at the end of it. Why? Because they do the least amount of color. They don't add crap to it that
Yep.
you don't need. The Audio Technicas are great, but they're fairly bright and they add a lot of bass, particularly around 200 hertz. And the problem with that is if for editing, no problem. But if there's a lot of you voice actors who like to experiment with EQ and figure out how does my audio sound, and they want to learn stuff. The M50Xs are not the most, what I call neutral. They're boosting the bass. They're boosting, right? So if you ever want to do anything beyond just editing and submitting your audition, if you want to learn more about your audio and improve it, like via my course or whatever, trying to hear stuff on YouTube that someone's teaching you, when you're hearing something, it's like putting on blurry glasses. It's the best way I could describe it, right? Or you put on glasses that change the color of what you're looking at, and then you take them off. You're like, oh, that's what, unfortunately, most headphones are. Why do they do that? Because everyone's got to have their own sound. It's a big topic. But the problem is if you're hearing something through a blurry set of headphones, if you want to call it that, if you try to shape something and you want it to sound good on everything else, like someone's AirPods or in someone's car or blaring over a PA system at a concert venue, if you're starting with what you're changing with EQ and compression through a blurry set of headphones, then it's not going to, the term is translate well to other platforms. So back to the Sennheisers, the HD280s are very neutral for the money.
I think that's actually what I had.
Yeah.
And I think they're probably in the drawer here behind me, actually. But then I just had to get the other ones because they were orange. But yeah, so, okay, good. I'm glad to know I got good ones anyway.
They're good. Sometimes they clamp people's heads too tight. So
yes.
I've heard that. You can put it on a basketball for a week. Let's stretch out that band.
There's a pro tip.
I don't know. Basketball might be too big. Some ball, cantaloupe, I don't know.
Volleyball, I don't know. How
something
big
as big as your head, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a big ass head.
You've touched on it a couple times. You've mentioned some of the classes that you offer. I know you've got two main ones anyway. You've got your Apollo course and you've got your Audio Ninja Masterclass. So tell us a little bit more about those, because I know that there's definitely a lot that voice actors need to learn in both spaces, but particularly the Audio Ninja thing. If 80% of our auditions have crap audio, then clearly there's a few of us that need to fix some things.
Absolutely. No, to really summarize it, in 2021, I mean, that's like the peak of like, oh, COVID's sticking around, right? We're like almost a year in, and it's like, okay, we're going to be isolated for a while, and we got to, there's stuff we got, and we have time to learn, right? So I made the course in early 2021 because I was shocked. I surveyed it because I didn't just assume, and so many talent, like a lot of talent, wanted to learn everything from EQ to compression to noise. Like, how is my noise floor? Are my S's too bright? Do I need to get a shotgun mic? Like, there's just all these questions that can't really be quite answered in like an interview format or even just a YouTube video. And all of them are connected to each other. So why didn't I just make a course that's just like how to EQ your voice? Because there's more to it than that. So the Audio Ninja Masterclass is a pre-recorded course. There's no things you have to attend and put in your calendar. And it covers everything from A to Z in the prevention phase of like, how do we get junk to not get into your audio? Bass buildup, boxy, boothy sounds, horrible S's, mouth clicks, all that stuff. How do we prevent that from getting in? Let me show you how. Oh, is there junk left over? Yes, there always is some form. Some people have more junk than others, right?
Yep.
Maybe you can't like turn off your neighbor's AC because it's 120 degrees out and you live in Vegas. You can't go bash on, why do you need a cold air? I'm a voice actor. You can't do that. So maybe you need some noise removal. How do you do it correctly without ruining your audio? Maybe your noise floor, you think, like, my noise floor is so quiet. No one ever complains, right? And then I show you, I literally have like a chart that you can load your noise floor into. And I will expose to you, how professional is it? It's not just what the meter says. It's not, it says -60. I'm good. No, it's not that simple, unfortunately. There's a little more to it. I show you. So if you are empowered to learn that stuff, that is what the masterclass is all about. So be sure to check it out. And most importantly, I make it fun. There's a lot of boring, like it's tech, it's audio. Brr. Most people don't care. I make it really, like, I'm going to make you laugh continuously throughout the thing. So,
I mean, I think you said you created it in COVID because you're home and you've got time and, I got time to do this, but then also people are at home and they want to learn. I think the other side of that equation, though, was this was the beginning of the true rise of the home studio, right? Like,
yes.
We've
100%.
all had home studios for a long time, but all of the sudden places that never had embraced it or never accepted it previously did.
Yep.
Cities
Had to.
and agents and whatever, and they had to, which makes it that much more important that us as voice actors have at least a base knowledge of some of this stuff to make sure that we're putting out good audio.
Yeah, and a lot of times you don't. Just because you're not getting negative feedback about your audio doesn't mean your audio is great.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Like, I mean, I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to scold anyone, but a lot of people just go off of that. And that's a fair data set to go off. Well, no one said anything. It must be good or great. It might just be passable. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this for a fact because I hear, like, I've worked with like big voice actors in video games, promos, like guys making $1 million or more. I'm not exaggerating. Okay. Especially like in the promo trailer world. And I'll get there and they're like, hey man, I just want, no one's ever complained, but I just want to, what do you think? And I'll hear it. And I'm like, it's not because I'm looking for a problem. I hate those engineers. Like, I need to be important. I need to feel important. Like when you upload your demo in a Facebook group. Hey guys, what do you think of my new demo? Oh, everyone's going to have an opinion because they want to feel valuable and important. But some people, obviously, a lot of people mean well, but some people just need to feel like they're valuable and have to give feedback to scrutinize. I'm not that guy. I don't have that small of an ego. But you'd be surprised that some of these people are making a lot of money, how much you could still improve your audio, whether you do it yourself, like through the course, or you just hire me directly to do it, which is also an option. And to catty corner that into, I also have a UAD Apollo course because so many talent buy this thing and they open up the software and they're like, they're like, what am I going to do? This is terrifying.
Oh,
and I get it.
Now what? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's made for audio engineers. So I whittle all that down like, hey, voiceover people, put it in the small box. Here's all you need to know. And here's how you make your stuff sound really good. Because that's what you paid for. Why'd you pay so much money for this? Just for it to be a glorified volume knob, right? So I have presets built in there and everything that I help you get started with and then shape your own sound. So whether a lot of people fall into one and two camps or in between, they want to learn all the stuff themselves because it makes themselves valuable to their clients and adaptable. What if you move from a blanket booth into a walk-in closet because you had to, it won't fit in your new space that you moved to, or you upgrade from a blanket booth to a studio bricks? Your sound changes. Yeah. If you have something like this course, you can walk through it, right? And like redo and establish, oh wait, is my noise floor still good? Or how are my assets now? Is there too much fishbowl buildup? That's what these things can help you do. And you just take what you need. You can cherry pick what you need. So.
Okay. And tell us where we can find them. And then I'll include that in the show notes as well if we're looking for either one of those classes. Yeah.
Honestly, the easiest way is jordanreynolds.com/links. LINKS, not links with an X like the cat. Really cool cat, by the way, but that would be confusing. So LINKS is where the easiest way to find it, everything.
Okay. We'll put that in the show notes. All right. Well, Jordan, this has been awesome. Are you on Instagram?
I am. Jordan's Voice. So Jordan with an S, then Voice. That's honestly what I'm on mostly. So Facebook.
Jordan's Voice. Okay. So
Instagram's the best.
When you go out and you do your Black Friday shopping and you pick up, one of these microphones or interfaces or, your mic mute button or any of the stuff that we've talked about in the last hour or so, take a picture of it, post it on Instagram, tag us at Jordan's Voice. I'll include that in the show notes at Marc Scott. We'd love to see what kind of fun stuff you were picking up or what went on your wish list for Santa Claus this holiday season. Jordan, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing your wisdom with us and giving us some recommendations and working hard to help us all be able to deliver just a little bit better quality audio.
You got it, man. No, it's an honor to be here. I love your podcast. I listen to it all the time. So it's cool to be on it and to add some gems amongst the many gems that you give to your listeners. So thanks for having me, man.